Good evening, Nebraska, Kansas, and Missouri Auto Body Associations. It's that time again, so grab a cocktail. We got Mr. Jackie Riggs with us from AAMS Training. He's going to lay some knowledge down on you tonight. And as always, please get questions in the questions box. We will wait and answer them all at the end. And just make sure if you got a question, get it in and let's get it answered by the professional. So Mr. Riggs, take it away, sir.
All right. Well, hey, thank you so much for having me this evening. I truly appreciate the opportunity to go over what it is that our company does, and then to also just give some knowledge from our 25 years of existence of doing OSHA and EPA compliance in the automotive industry. Specifically on this call, we're going to talk about the collision and what that looks like for a body shop or someone that owns multiple body shops, what they're supposed to do, how they're supposed to track it, what they're supposed to keep up with. And we'll go through all that. And like James said, if you have questions, I'm going to go through my PowerPoint presentation. And then at the end, I'll take all your questions before we flip over into the compliance management section to show you about that as well. So again, my name is Jackie Riggs. I'm the Vice President of AAMS Training and AAMS Parts. That's my information on there, Jackie@aamsparts.com, and my cell phone, 940-465-5099. A little background on our company. We have, again, been around since 1995, and we're a dual part company where we do outside sales and marketing for dealership parts departments. And then we have a whole nother division, which is the AMStraining.com division that does OSHA and EPA compliance for the automotive industry. So collision shops, dealerships, and automotive repair shops. We provide services and compliance management for all sectors of those three organizations. So just getting into it in the very beginning to kind of break the ice here. So can you spot the violation in this picture? Most people get it right away, but I can tell you that this isn't too far-fetched in some of the stuff that I've seen in my 15 years of doing this. Maybe not that bad, but I have seen quite a few things that are very similar to this. So number two is about that one. Got the ladder up on top of a toolbox. The guy's obviously hanging the air hose up there, but in the background you can see really big in the rafters, a safe workplace on that one. So I thought that was quite hilarious. This one is even funnier. As you can see, this gentleman is scaling the staircase there, railing by hanging up his Think Safety First sign for his shop there. And right behind him is a huge ladder that's just kind of hanging there on that corner that easily could fall over and hit him and knock him face first into that orange piping down there at the bottom. So again, just stuff that you see, you know, when you're walking around a shop that people don't think about as they're trying to, you know, simply hang a sign in a shop. Lastly, my personal favorite, this one's quite hilarious. So there's a guy, hey, at least he's got his ear protection on, right? And he's using his buddy there as the table. So that's hilarious. And the answer, of course, the solution, you can just throw up a sign that says no stupid people beyond this point, and that solves everything, and then you have nothing to worry about. If only it was that easy. All right, getting into it now. Why do I need a compliance program in my shop? Well, for starters, it's the law. There are very costly penalties to non-compliance. So that's number one. Number two, for those of you that have DRPs, every DRP agreement that you sign, if you ever were to go through and actually look through all the verbiage in your DRP agreements, they do have wording that states, A, you need to have some sort of safety program in place, or B, you need to be following the rules and regulations set forth by OSHA or EPA, or something to that effect, or very similar, but it does say that. Now, some of the insurance companies are better about wanting shops to provide them with proof of training or proof that they're on a program, but in every DRP requirement that we've ever seen, it is a requirement in there. There is a fact that compliant shops are successful shops. They have better applicants, they have a higher employee retention, and that is simply because if you are working in this hazardous workplace and continue getting educated or doing some sort of monthly safety training, or you have to, before you can even hit the floor to work at a shop, you have to take some sort of safety class. It's just it creates this culture of safety in the mindset of that employee that, hey, this owner, this manager, this organization really cares about me being safe, so that brings a level of confidence to wanting to stay around. It reduces injuries and it keeps your employees safe by having a program in place. Quite frankly, it's just the right thing to do. And it also can lower the cost for workers' comp and business insurances by providing the proof that you're having ongoing training as well. Some of the key components for overall compliance in a shop, in a collision shop, is number one, you have to have employee OSHA and EPA compliance and training. OSHA states in the rule that you must be continually educating your employees on the hazards of the workplace, and you must also provide annual training on all of the hazards in the workplace as well. So that's one of the top key components for overall compliance is the employee OSHA, EPA compliance and training. Physical shop compliance. So what our company does, and what we always look at when we're looking at a collision shop or a dealership or an automotive shop, either or, is we break down compliance and safety into two basic buckets. The first being the physical shop compliance. Those are the things that you can look and touch and feel. So that's your fire extinguishers, that's making sure that your lifts are inspected monthly and periodically inspected, making sure that your mixing room doors are shut, that your hazardous waste containers don't have any rust or leaks, and that they're grounded. All of those things will fall into that physical shop compliance. That's important. The other bucket is the employee compliance, which would be training, certifications, and ongoing 6H or respirator fit tests or medical evaluations, the stuff that takes place on the employee side. So we look at physical shop compliance and employee compliance as well. SDS, documentation and storage. Several years ago, this went from MSDS to SDS, so safety data sheets. You do have to have that on file electronically, or the old school binders with it printed off. Pretty much everyone's gone to the electronic form because it's just easier to manage, and it's also very accessible to anyone in the shop. So either way that you do that, whether having the paper or the electronic, it is a very key component that if an inspector walked in and asked any of your employees, where's your SDS, they do need to be able to answer that very quickly and know how to access those SDS sheets in the event of an emergency as well. Written programs. So OSHA requires any organization, even doesn't matter, oil, gas, collision, automotive, you're a dry cleaner, whatever it might be, that you have a written program that states what you're doing on an ongoing basis to make sure that your shop is safe, that your employees are trained, and that your employees are safe. And it has to be what you're doing specifically, not just some generic out-of-the-box written programs. It has to be specific to how you conduct and what you do and what your plans are based around the program that you're doing on a continual basis. Filing and storing required documentation. There's a lot of documentation that has to be on file for up to 5 years. So it's very difficult to keep up with some of that in file cabinets. So what we do is we do it all electronically and have everything electronically backed up, which I'll show you that a little bit later. But you do have to have a good filing and storing of documentation system as well. That's a very key component. The NESHAP 6H rule compliance, that's something that's been around with the EPA now for quite some time. There are ways that you have to make sure that you're following and doing everything that the 6H rule requires, not only from training the painter or doing refresher courses every 5 years, but also the filing of your initial compliance forms and keeping those on file at the shop to show that you're following those rules and regulations as well on the NESHAP 6H rule. hazardous waste, storage, labeling, disposal records. Most shops that we deal with have Safety Clean or a company like Safety Clean that comes and picks up their recyclables and their hazardous waste. And in the event when this happens, they will usually leave you paperwork that shows how much they picked up, what place they're taking it to do the recycling. You do have to keep those records on file. Safety Clean now has an online version of this, which is really useful, so that even if you lose the paperwork, if you have Safety Clean, you can actually log in and pull all of the records of everything that's been picked up, how much, where they disposed of it, and you can print that off pretty easily as well. So I'm sure other companies have that, but I've seen Safety Cleans, and it's pretty good. And then the last thing for a key component for overall compliance is environmental safety certificate elements. That's the OSHA EPA certificates of completion that you have to have annually, which is basically just your proof of training for EPA and for OSHA training that's going on. I'm going to stop right there real quick and go ahead and take a few questions. I was going to wait to the end, but that's a lot of information. I'm sure there's been some questions, James.
Nothing that I am seeing, sir.
All right, so we'll just keep moving on.
We've got the smart people on tonight.
All right, where does the rules come from? Where does these regulations come from? Are they just pulled out of thin air? No, they're not. They're pulled from the 29 CFR Part 1910, which is the general industry training requirements per OSHA. They do subparts E through I, and how that works is they give you, here's the subparts, which we're going to go through really quickly. But if you ever got a general industry book, it's literally a binder. It's about this thick, front, back, 10-point. It's a lot of information on these subparts, and it's means of egress, employee emergency and fire plans. So that's your emergency evacuation routes. What do you do? Where's your evacuation point? So you can count heads. The building's on fire. Where's everybody meeting? Powered platforms, man lifts, and vehicles. Those are your lifts. You have to have training built around those. Work platforms, if you do have those. Occupational health and environmental controls. So this is kind of like job hazard analysis, hazard assessments, controls in the building. You have to have some sort of ongoing training programs, hazardous materials, flammable and combustible liquids, storage and handling of petroleum gases, process safety management of highly hazardous chemicals. So all that's again around the hazardous materials, what subpart H is, mechanical integrity, hazardous waste operations and emergency response. What happens if my 55-gallon drum gets a leak and all of the chemicals spill all over the floor? Do you have a plan to get that spill cleaned up the correct way and dispose of that properly? Those are the types of things that is covering in hazardous materials. Subpart I, personal protective equipment and respiratory protection, specifications of accident prevention signs and tags, controls, lockout, tag out. So if someone's working on a piece of equipment in your shop, do you have the locks and the tags to turn the breaker off and lock it out so that nobody accidentally turns it on? That's a lockout, tag out program. Medical services and first aid. Do you have someone that's trained in first aid that can administer with the gloves and the goggles and the mask, a bloodborne pathogen kit, just in case someone's bleeding out until medical, the ambulance can arrive? You have to have someone trained in the shop on that. Fire protection, that's portable fire extinguishers or your fixed extinguishers, fire detection systems on your paint booths, machine and machine guarding, operator training, personal protective equipment, we've already went over that. Welding and cutting and brazing. So on the welding, is only trained people welding and cutting and brazing at this time? Do you have proof of training built around someone who's out there welding? General requirements, oxygen, fuel gas, and welding, arc welding, anything to do with welding. They want training, clear training, and an outline. Electrical safety, and then toxic and hazardous substances. So again, that's all of the subparts that make up a program in a body shop. So how do you interpret and take that and turn it into your own program? Well, that's really what we've done on the compliance management side, which I'll show you in a little bit. But talking about some of the things in a shop, earlier I was mentioning the physical shop compliance. So physical shop compliance is the compliance of all necessary elements that are required within a collision shop. So some of those are signage. One of the most simple things that I've seen shops getting written up for is just simply not having proper signage up where it's supposed to go. An example of that is on your air compressors, there has to be an auto start warning sign. Over by your hazardous waste area, you have to have a no smoking sign. On your mixing room door, you're supposed to have a keep mixing room door shut at all times. These are little things that some inspectors will write you up for, some won't, but if they go into a shop and see no signage, they can start to unravel a little bit and start writing you up for all the missing signage that's around. Hazardous and job hazard analysis, I'll get into more detail on that in a minute. Monthly fire extinguisher inspections. So everybody has fire extinguishers in their shops. And if you've ever walked up to one of those fire extinguishers and took a look at it, there's literally a paper tag on the fire extinguisher, and if you turn it over, there's 12 spots, and it says monthly inspection. So OSHA says that all fire extinguishers must be checked in-house monthly. So all you're doing is having someone run around, look at the fire extinguisher, make sure it's clear, you can actually easily access it, make sure it's hung on the wall properly, make sure that it hasn't been used, and then the needle's still on the green. And the reason they want this done monthly as opposed to having the fire department come out every 6 to 8 months is, again, it's all back to employee safety. So let's say somebody's in the back of your shop, they get some rags catch on fire, they grab a fire extinguisher off the wall, they put it out, they hang the fire extinguisher back up, they don't want to get in trouble, so they don't tell anybody. But then a month later, that fire extinguisher hasn't been checked, and your guy's back there mixing paint accidentally catches his clothes on fire. And so another employee runs to that fire extinguisher on the wall thinking, I'm going to grab this, get over there, put him out, everything's going to be okay. Grabs fire extinguisher, runs back, hits the button, nothing happens. Well, now you're talking about an extra 8 seconds, maybe 10 seconds, 7 seconds, depending on where the other fire extinguisher is, that person who's on fire cannot get put out. So then it takes it from being something that might have been a minor injury to something that could be very serious on an injury. So that's why they want all fire extinguishers to be checked in-house monthly, is so that we're always knowing that every fire extinguisher in the building is ready to go in the event of an emergency. Hazardous energy, which is electrical safety. So this is mainly in body shops. I see extension cords around, especially back in the detail area where water is. They don't want any frays or taped or repaired extension cords because that's obviously an electrical hazard. So they'll look for that. Good housekeeping practices. This just falls back to aisles and passageways, making sure there's a clear way out of the building, making sure you don't have a lot of clutter built up. I know some shops are very small, and room is a factor, but you've always got to try to instill in the employees that, hey, if something happens, we need to be able to get out of this building quickly. So let's try to keep some aisles and passageways clear. I've seen a lot of shops that will tape yellow lines on the floor, almost like lanes that go around to the exit doors, and they'll keep one kind of down the center of the shop as well, just to kind of give that visual a good way to get out of the building. Proper documentation on file for all OSHA and EPA compliance. I talked about that. Mixing room and paint booth compliant, that really revolves around 6H as well. Exit routes and pathways are clearly visible. And then we get into some of the required documentation. Any questions that have popped up yet?
No, sir. Everybody make sure you start getting in your questions so that way we can get them answered by Jackie here. So
Absolutely. I will continue on. Required documentation. So OSHA does require, like I mentioned earlier, written programs. Those written programs are going to be based around the program that you're providing at your shop. What are you doing to train? What are you doing to continually educate? How are you handling respirator fit test? How are you handling your medical evaluations for the PPE users, the respirator users? All of those would be part of your written programs that you have. EPA compliance, again, the 6H documents, that breaks down, number one, do you have the initial notification or the compliance notification paperwork on file for the shop? And then do you have the proof of training that should be on file for the painters, that they're following the 6H rules and that they understand the 6H rules? That's important. OSHA record keeping logs, OSHA 300, 300As. This is your injury reporting. So OSHA does require, if you have any injuries throughout the year, you're supposed to put those on an OSHA 300 form and post them up in the break room for 3 months towards the first of every year, so that everybody can see, that information. It's a requirement by law that you have to do that. So job hazard analysis, JHA by roll and sign. Again, I'm going to get into more detail on this one in just a minute, because this is an emphasis program that is going on currently right now with OSHA. So I definitely want to hit on this one so you understand it completely. Respirator medical evaluations and clearance letters. So anyone that wears a respirator, and this is typically your painters and your body techs or your painters helpers, they have to be fit tested, number one, but before they can be fit tested, they have to have what's called a medical evaluation, and they have to be cleared by that. So you can either send them to the doctor, to the regular doctor, get an exam. The doctor can send a letter back saying, yes, they're clear to wear a respirator, or there's online versions of this. We have an online version of this as well. Depending on how the employee answers will depend on whether they pass or fail. Most pass based on the answers they give. It's completely protected by HIPAA laws. So when they go into the system, only they can put in their information. All that the owner or manager sees is whether they passed or they need to go for further evaluation at the doctor. Respirator annual fit test. Again, that is something that has to be done so that you can make sure that your employee is safe and cleared to wear a respirator. Proof of annual and ongoing OSHA training. Annual certified lift inspections from an ALI certified lift inspector. The Automotive Lift Institute, which is the people that are pushing down, and now they have training for, you can become an ALI certified inspector. It's almost like an inspection sticker on your car. They are wanting your lifts to be inspected every single year by an ALI certified inspector. So they basically come in, they check all the safeties on your lifts, they make sure everything's in working order, they make sure that your rubber feet are good and that there's no problems with the lifts, and then they will certify it and put a sticker on the side of it that has a date that it'll run out, and that's how they do it. SDS binders or online, we talked about that earlier. Emergency evacuation routes as well, that's part of the required documentation. This would be an example of a customized emergency evacuation route. As you can see, it has your paint booths on there. It has where your fire extinguishers are, where your frame machines are, where your eye wash station, your breaker panels, your air compressors, where do you store your hazardous waste, your exit doors, and an evacuation point that everybody can clearly see in the event of an emergency or fire. Hey, this is where we're meeting. Let's count heads. Is everybody here? Yes. And that is a proper customized emergency evacuation route, what it would look like. SDS compliance. So the rule states, and I'll just read it to you, and then I'll have a question for anyone. So it says the employer shall maintain in the workplace copies of the required safety data sheets for each hazard chemical and shall ensure that they are readily accessible during each work shift to the employees when they are in the work areas. Electronics access and other alternatives to maintaining paper copies of safety data sheets are permitted as long as there's no barriers and the employee has immediate access. James, if you could let me know how many people have the binders and how many people have electronic access. I'd like to know that answer of the people that are on.
All right, everyone, answer up so I can relay it on. I'd say it's like 80-20 with the binders.
So most people have binders?
Yes.
That's great. Okay. And, Old school is sometimes the best way to do this because of the way this rule is written. You have to have access. All employees have to have access at all times. The problem with the paper that we have seen is, even though everybody knows where it is and you can grab it, it's the making sure that you have the most up-to-date SDS in the binder at all times. There's revisions that happen all the time on chemicals, and when a revision happens, OSHA wants, of course, the most recent revision in the SDS binder or in the electronic access place. So just making sure that you're working with your jobber, your paint company, to make sure that that is always up to date and that they're maintaining the most recent revisions inside of those binders is something that I would highly suggest that you talk to them about when you're doing that. So thank you for that answer. I appreciate it. All right, job hazard analysis. So I said I would get into this, and I wanted to specifically focus on this today because this is something that we are seeing more and more of, and we are seeing a emphasis on this. A job hazard analysis, or a hazard assessment is what it used to be called, and that some people still call it that, is a technique that focuses on job tasks as a way to identify before they occur. You focus on the relationship between the worker, the task, the tools, and the work environment. And then you ideally, after you identify the uncontrolled hazards, you will take steps to eliminate or reduce them to an acceptable risk. So what this is saying is, other than PPE, other than personal protective equipment, what can you do for your detailer? What can you do for your painter? What can you do for your body tech or your mechanic or whoever it is, the role of that employee, with the hazards that they work with on a daily basis and the tools that they use on a daily basis, and the task and so on and so forth? What can you do to reduce the hazard prior to the PPE? So what we did is we have created the most common job hazard analysis based by role and some of the steps that can be taken to reduce that. And this is an example of that for a job hazard analysis on a painter. So some of the tasks and steps, as you can see, paint spraying and mixing paint, that's the two things that they do. The hazards that they have while doing that task or step, the inhalation of isocyanates or the hazardous materials. They could get eye irritation, splash of vapor, or skin irritation. Same with the mixing of the paint as well. So what's some of the controls or measures that can be taken prior to PPE? Well, I can have a filter change out plan in my booth that would help with, obviously those hazards being out there in the paint booth. Proper spray techniques according to 6H. So making sure that your painter's doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing, not doing too much overspray, making sure, again, your filters are changed out so you have a cleaner paint job for number one, but also that those isocyanates aren't so in the air and that the filtration is working in those paint booths. Ventilation in the mixing room, changing out filters in the mixing room, and then proper pour and mix techniques while in the mixing room mixing the paint. So those are all the things that can be trained or put in place prior to personal protective equipment to reduce that hazard of that particular role of that employee in the shop. And you can do the same one of these for detailers, mechanics, body techs. There's a job hazard analysis for each one of those. And then the last thing is, what personal protective equipment would be best for this particular painter? Well, it would be air visors, full face masks, half face masks, premium line goggles, gas vapor respirators, chemical resistant gloves while mixing, and that's what a job hazardness analysis looks like. So you put all this together, and then you take this information and you go over it with your painter. Hey, here's what we're doing as an organization to try to reduce some of the hazards of your job. We just want to make sure that you understand this and make sure that you understand that you need to wear your PPE, but these are the steps that we're taking. And then you have an employee signature and a date, and then you file this away in their employee tab, or if you have a file cabinet with employee files in it, you would put that in there. It's a one-time thing. But they will be asking you for this. If they come by as an inspector, they might ask for a hazard assessment or just a job hazard analysis. And that's what it looks like if one that's completely done. Any questions on the job hazard analysis?
Nothing coming across as far as questions. Come on, everyone. Just make sure you get your questions up so we can get them answered by Jackie. Great information though, Jackie.
Thank you. All right, this is a question that I get asked all the time, and I love this question because it's something that you would think you might know, but when it happens to you, when that OSHA inspector walks in and says, "I'm here to conduct an inspection," or they show up, what do you do? I mean, really, what do you do in that instance? And
Stop.
yeah. And if you unfortunately, you know, as an owner or a manager, let's say you got a new manager in one of your locations and they show up, well, you're not there, and so they get nervous and they might handle this not the right way, and that can lead to some serious problems if you do not handle an inspector walking into your shop the correct way. So before conducting an inspection, most of the time, OSHA compliance officers research the inspection history of the work site. They review the operations and the processes and the standards most likely to apply. And then they also gather appropriate PPE, sometimes testing instruments to measure potential hazards. That might be sound instruments to look at the decibels in the building while somebody's working without ear protection. I've seen it all. They might clip something to a painter's chest while he goes in and paints a car to make sure that the filtration is working in the paint booth. But that can happen. All of those things can happen. Number one is be polite. They have a job to do, so kindness will go a very, very long way with an inspector. I know it can be very nerve-wracking, and it can cause some of the employees and even your managers to get very nervous, and sometimes they might react a different way, but just number one thing is be polite. And then number two is you as the owner, the manager, whoever it is, when they show up, it is your right to have them wait for up to 30 minutes. I would not suggest making them wait 30 minutes in your lobby, but you have that right up to 30 minutes to make them wait in your lobby. But you do it in a way that you're not going to say, "Hey, go wait in my lobby for 30 minutes." You say, "Hey, you know what? I'm happy to take care of you. I'm going to get with you as soon as I possibly can. I'm just trying to wrap up a few things here. Can I get you some coffee? Can I get you some water? Do you want something to eat? Just hang out here. I'll come and grab you as soon as I can." That's how you handle that. And then when you do that, while they're waiting in your office, hopefully you have a company that's helping you with your OSHA, or you've done it before and you have some sort of checklist that you can run out to your shop or have your manager run out to the shop. We have a quarterly inspection in our system that you can pull up at any time. That's actually the top 30 items that an OSHA inspector is going to walk in and look for that day at your shop. So while they're sitting there waiting, you or your safety coordinator, or your manager, whoever it is, can literally pull it up on their phone or their iPad, and they're going to run around the shop for 10 or 15 minutes. And you would be surprised how many things you're going to find that need to be cleaned up really quick, that can be cleaned up really quick in 15 minutes. Clearing fire extinguishers, making sure the exit doors aren't blocked. Hey, put on your goggles, put on your glasses, get your respirators on, shut the mixing room door. You know, all of these things can really quickly be, you know, rectified in the 10 to 15 minutes. So once you do that, you go get the inspector and you say, "Can I ask you, what's your reason for your visit today? Or how can I help you today?" The reason this is important is because in most cases in our industry, inspectors don't just randomly show up to body shops. It's just not something that happens on a day-to-day basis. They're specifically usually there for a reason. Either someone's got hurt, workman's comp claim has been filed, maybe they were down the street at another shop, just decided to stop in. That's more rare, but that could happen. Also, a disgruntled employee might have turned you in anonymously. A disgruntled customer might have turned you in anonymously, because you can go on OSHA.gov's website now and you can literally turn in any business you want anonymously. And sometimes they'll go check it out, sometimes they won't. Just kind of depends on the validity of the complaint but I've seen it both ways. But they will tell you, hey, yeah, we got a complaint, or someone got hurt. As you probably know, I got to come out and do an inspection. But ask them specifically what the reason is that they're there for. Here's an example scenario that I'm going to give you. So the inspector comes in, you made them sit in your office, ran around, you've done what you need to do in the back, you call him to the office, you say, okay, he says, I need to see your hazardous waste area. So in most shops, your hazardous waste, your 55-gallon drums are usually in the rear of the building, maybe outside the building, maybe they're inside the building, but they're maybe in one of the corners of the shop. But what you want to do is you want to take them to the outside the front of the building, around the outside of the building, and go to the nearest exit door or bay door that you can walk into to go directly to the hazardous waste. And then you show them what they need to see. Hopefully that's all they need to see. And then you can walk back out the side of the building, back up to the front, into the office, back to your office. You never walk them straight through the shop. The reason for that is it's the inspector's job to look for possible violations. So if you are to walk them straight through the middle of the shop while they're walking there, they are going to make observations as they go. Those observations could lead to a more detailed inspection or some more possible violations by doing that, instead of just taking them outside the building straight to what they asked to see. Example scenario number 2 is if they want to see a job hazard analysis, PPE assessment, maybe they want to see proof of training, ongoing training, 6H documents, whatever it might be. Maybe they're just there to see documentation. Well, that you should be able to do that from your office. You shouldn't have to take them out into the shop. So maybe you walk them into the office, the company that you're using, or you have it in a file cabinet, you're able to provide all the documentation, make copies of whatever they need. They say thank you, they go about their day. They never even go out into the shop. But too many times I have seen shop managers or owners, the person will show up, yeah, I'm here. Oh, okay, I guess you need to go do an inspection of the shop. They like actually suggest to the person, I guess you need to go do an inspection. They're like, well, yeah, I'm here, might as well. Instead of asking, what's the specific reason you're here? It's just a different approach, obviously, but you can save yourself a lot of headache down the road by handling that situation like that. What if they are there to conduct a full-blown inspection of your shop? This does happen, and that's okay. If that's what they're there for, you obviously have to do it. Again, I would suggest making them wait in your lobby for 10, 20 minutes, go back out, try to clean up stuff as much as possible, get people to put on their PPE, and then come back and say, hey, okay, I'm finished up, let's go. So the owner or manager, you must accompany the inspector and note and record everything the OSHA inspector notes and records. All conversations during the OSHA inspection should be documented. I would request, if you're going to do that, just to put a record on your phone, set it on a clipboard, and just be recording as you're walking around, so that way you don't miss anything, but write down everything. Document everything. If the inspector, is taking pictures, you take a picture. If he's writing something down, hey, can I ask what you're writing down? Okay, cool. You write down the same thing. Why did you write that down? What's going on? What was wrong with that? Ask the questions. But the compliance officer, they might do air samples, measure noise, interview video employees. All of these things can happen during a full inspection, but just make sure that your manager or yourself, the owner of the shop, is walking with them. And then duplicate everything. And do not assume anything is unimportant. That's the most important thing. If they take a picture, you take a picture. If they take a video, you take a video. I mean, it's you're just mimicking whatever they're doing as you're going, because you will need that information later in the informal conference that you'll hopefully have. And then last thing, any questions on that before I move on to the couple last things that we're going to get into?
No, but so I've always heard from just about every boss ever is if they show up, everybody in the shop stops working. Go to lunch, take a break, whatever, just so you don't give them any food for thought.
Sure. If you can afford to do that, it's a good rule of thumb. If you want to do that, some shops can't. They just have to kind of go out there and make sure everybody puts on their PPE and keeps moving, and that's that's what they do. But yeah, that's up to the shop owner how they want to handle that.
So I know I got a pretty good guess. What would you say the top 5 things are in a body shop?
That's actually what we're about to get into here.
Perfect. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah. So in the industry, in the body shops, there are some top violations that happen all the time. Doesn't matter what year it is. It's always based around the same things. And this is the list that taken directly from OSHA on the automotive repair and maintenance sector. And this is what come up. Hazard communication, number 1. Number 2, respiratory protection. Those two can switch back and forth. Respiratory protection is moving up the list quite a bit. Wiring methods, components, and equipment for general use. That's, broken sockets, extension cords that are frayed. That's all usually what they find. And then general requirements. And then in your paint booth, having open paint containers, or over in your hazardous waste area where you dump the extra paint, stuff not being grounded, not on spill containment, or not having a proper seal, or the barrel being rusted. Those are the things that we see over and over and over and over again in a body shop. And then fire extinguishers not being checked in-house monthly. You can almost find that one at any body shop you go to. OSHA doesn't really write it up too often. They will write you up if your fire extinguishers are blocked or if they're empty. But if you haven't been checking it in-house monthly, sometimes they'll give you a pass on that. They just mainly want to make sure that you have enough fire extinguishers and they're not blocked and that everybody has access to them. So those are the things. But yeah, that's the top ones. And it's always the same, every shop I go to. All right, lastly, this is everything that is required of a body shop for a complete collision compliance program. This is all the stuff that we provide. Again, we've talked about a lot of this already. Annual employee OSHA EPA training, fit testing, medical evaluations, quarterly inspection checklist, new employee training, auto lift certified inspections, and so on and so forth. It goes down the list there. But that's everything that you should be doing to be a fully compliant shop. And you have to have either training records or written programs that say how and when and how often you are doing these tasks within your shop. And that's how that works. All right, so that's the end of the PowerPoint. We'll get into the compliance management system after this, but is there any questions before we flip over to the compliance management portion?
Nothing. I think you're doing a great job. Nobody's got questions, and everybody is 100% attentive, which is pretty good.
Awesome. Good deal. All right, on this part, y'all can just rapid fire questions as I go, because I'm going to get into our compliance management system for body shops. So if you do have a question, just fire it off, and James, you can interrupt me. It's fine. I definitely want to answer any questions as they come up during this next part. All right. So just want to make sure that everybody can see my screen. All right. So I'm going to log into our demo organization here so that you guys can see how our system works, and a lot of what we've talked about today you'll see in here as well, how we handle that. So I guess I'd like to ask, how many people on the call have more than one shop?
From my looks, it's a good number of them.
Perfect. Okay, good. We designed this system for the person that has one shop or the person that has 1,000 shops. Doesn't matter. And everything in between. What I'm going to show you today is a shop group, the AAMS training shop group, that has several different collision centers, and you will be able to see how easy it is as an owner from that perspective to look and see where your shops are at any given moment in real time. So when you log into our system, if you're an MSO, you would land on your dashboard. This is your company dashboard, and it actually breaks down all of your shops here underneath and then tells you your overall organization's compliance at this time. Right now, about halfway there, 48%. And then you can break down below that to see how do we get that number. Well, you got Brooks Collision, that's only 13%, but you got Jackie's Body Shop, that's 86, Jack's Collision, 65, and so on and so forth. So you're able to look and see where your shops are with their compliance in real time. So if you wanted to click into Jackie's Body Shop, you just click on it, and then it takes you in, and you can see, okay, they're at 86%. They've got a couple of annual training tests they need to do, a couple of EPA testing that still needs to get done, missing some job hazard analysis on the body techs and the welders. And it just gives you a really good quick overview, snapshot of that shop and where they're at right now today. Getting into the actual tasks in our system. So again, I talked earlier about compliance and how we look at it in the two buckets. So there's shop compliance, which is the physical things around the shop. And then there's the employee compliance, which is the training for the managers and employees. So on the left over here, we'll just select a shop again. If you have multiple shops, again, you can drop in, you can go down to any one of your locations. We'll just go to Jackie's Body Shop here. So we're gonna drop in, and right here on the left, we're in the managers and employees tab right now. So Jackie has all of his training that he hasn't done yet, and he's really, really behind. You can see that right here. And then below that is all of your other employees and what they have to do. And there's all their trainings that's been assigned to them. Now, I know this looks like a really long list, but I've loaded every single training onto this one person. When it's a painter, they only have painter training. When it's a detailer, they only have to do their detailer job hazard analysis and 2 other testings. When it's an office estimator or office manager, they have to take office ergonomics per OSHA. You know, so it's not as daunting of a list when you break it down by role, which is the way we look at each employee within a shop. But for example, on the annual EPA test, our training is set up to be done very quickly, very easy, but also compliant. So this particular one is about a 6-minute video that they would hit play on. They could start watching the video, taking the testing. They don't have to watch the entire video to take the test. They can go ahead and start doing that. But below that, it's a true false. Some are multiple choice, some are true false. It just depends on the training module that's loaded in there. But I'll go through and just select some of them. Every test is set up the same, where you will go in and hit the Grade My Test button, and it will actually highlight in red what they got wrong. So then they can go back and change those answers, hopefully learn something in the process, hit save and close, and then they would be done with that training. The EPA testing, the OSHA testing, the office ergonomics, isocyanates, all of those testing are required once a year. So it's not like you're going to have to come in here, your employees going to have to come in here all the time. They could literally come in one time a year, take all their testing, and then the manager conducts the monthly safety meetings for ongoing training. And that's how that would work. Shop tasks are set up very similar to how an employee takes their training. The manager would actually be able to pull this up on an iPad or an iPhone and sit down and go through this. For example, the quarterly inspection checklist that I was talking about earlier, they're able to open this up. At the top of every single one of our tasks in our system or training is either going to be a video or a click-through slideshow. This one's on conducting a proper safety inspection. How do I do this? Why am I conducting this inspection? What are some of the steps? How do I do it? So if they have any questions, it's up here at the top on how to do this particular task. And it'll explain it in detail exactly what they're supposed to do. Below that is the task. So when I said the top 30 things that you're going to look for, an OSHA inspector is going to look for when they go out, this is it. Are you providing your employees with the proper personal protective equipment? Yes, I am. Well, let's say your manager's not exactly sure what this question means. Well, they can go to the Life Preserver, which will give them a PDF, which will actually explain this particular question in detail on what PPE is, and dry sanding and grinding, suggested products, welding, suggested products, paint, degreasing, so on and so forth. We actually give you the suggested product that goes with that. So are you providing that? You would just simply hit yes. Let's say they still wanted to look. Well, there's the OSHA rule that's tied to that question. So you're not just doing this because we said so. OSHA says, hey, here's the rule. This is why you have to do this particular question. Same with respirators are kept in a sealed container when not in use. You can simply click on this. Again, we give you an example of a proper respirator storage. Either the bags or the plastic box that hangs on the wall is compliant, but it has to be, when not in use, needs to be in one of these bags. And again, all the questions down through here, you can go through. Paint booth filters, mixing room, has proper spill containment and explosion-proof lighting, mixing room doors closed, so on and so forth. So again, this is just a checklist. You can run through. It's 30 questions, and you hit save. Answers have been saved, and you can see, you can always go back and redo this. When this is done, though, that green bar will be all the way over to the right, so you'll know that that particular one is completed. Many of you have MSOs, so on this checklist, let's say you have your manager conducting this particular checklist themselves. So they go out, they are doing everything, and let's say you want them on the places where it's no. So let's say you don't have respirators being inspected and cleaned or replaced of routine maintenance. You hit no, your manager can hit this camera icon. If they pull this up on an iPhone or actually pull up their camera, take a quick picture, hit save, and it'll attach a picture in here for you as the owner, so that you can go back and know, okay, I need to do this, I need to get this fixed. The manager said this was broken, and that's how that works. Once you get down to the bottom of any inspection, you can also hit the view or send. So this will pull up all of the people in the organization's emails, and you can simply just click on who you want to send it to, hit send, and it'll send that full report to whoever it is that you selected. And when you get there, it actually looks like this. So there is the quarterly inspection. Again, we have the rule that goes with the question on every question. So that way you understand, okay, this is the OSHA rule, this is the OSHA rule. And the pictures, if you take them, will also show up here as well. So that's how that works in our system. It's very easy. Monthly fire extinguisher checks, again, those have to be done in-house monthly. So we give the training at the top. Here's the OSHA rule. Here's how to mount it on the wall. Here's what the label should look like. There's what you're looking for when you're looking at it. Make sure it's in the green, plastic's not messed with. And then there's the tag that you're supposed to sign. And then you simply go through, answer the quick 7 questions. Hit save. And you can see it's all the way done. So now you can check that off as done. So that's how it works in our system with tasks. So manager can quickly and easily, just by going through and selecting and answering a few questions in our system on these tasks, some are monthly, some are quarterly, but they can start to get an understanding of, on a day-to-day basis. I mean, there's no better person than the owner or the managers that are out in the shops every single day, walking the floor, going and looking at cars, to have the information of the top 30 things that an OSHA inspector would look for. So now when you're walking through, you can say, hey, move that away from that fire extinguisher. Hey, we need to unblock that exit door. Hey, put your PPE on. And you can just start understanding it more and pointing it out to the employees, because at the end of the day, OSHA's #1 goal for any organization, it doesn't matter who it is, that has hazardous workplaces, they want to develop from the top down and bottom up in that organization what's called a culture of safety. And the only way that that can happen is if the organization and the people within that organization understand what it is that they're supposed to be doing. So our system is really designed in that way to provide quick and easy tasks that anyone can do simply by answering a few questions, but also to educate them on why they're doing it. Why does OSHA say I need to do this? Well, Well, it says right here that you have to do that because of here's the rule and here's an example of what it looks like. So again, it's a very good training tool that we've used in our system. Any questions on any of that before I move on?
No, everyone's tracking along, it seems like.
Okay, perfect. Our system also has a task that's emergency evacuation routes. So the task goes in. I'll actually pull that up so you can see how that works. It's back here. Emergency evacuation route. So one of the first things that has to happen is you have to get emergency evacuation routes done for your shop. You do not have to be an artist at all to do it. Simply just sketch it out, and all you need to do, we actually give you this short little video. It's a little over a minute and a half. Tells you what to do. Outline the building, mark all the exit doors, simply by putting a little X where the exit doors are. Mark the bay doors, just mark them just like that, very easy. Set up and do the offices, just where the doors are, where your restrooms are, where your reception is. Breaker panels, hazardous waste, eye wash station. And then once you get it done, it should look like this. Again, very simple drawing, but we will take it and our people will render it, put the keys on it, we'll put it and we'll make it like it's supposed to be, so that you can then take that and post it up on the exit doors per the OSHA rule. Respirator questionnaires, I talked about this a little bit. In order for a painter or a respirator user body tech to wear a respirator, they have to be medically cleared and fit tested. So we have a task that's assigned to those respirator users, and then once they take and answer the questions, they will either be approved or denied in our system. And how that looks is right here. So here is the OSHA respirator medical evaluation when it was done, and here is our in-house licensed RN that actually reviews these, signs off, so that then you have that approved clearance letter for the medical evaluation. Is how that works. And you can easily go in and see all of your medical evaluations because they're all stored here in one easy to find spot. Same with fit testing. Once your fit test is done, you can view the documents here. Job hazard analysis, talk about that. Once they're done, you can come in here and view those job hazard analysis by all of the employees, and that's how that works. So again, we are all about electronic storage and backup, and where we do most of that is right here in the Documents tab. So again, we're on Jackie's Body Shop. So let's say OSHA inspector shows up. They're asking to see your ongoing training. They're asking for your emergency evacuation routes, certified lift inspection documents, all the stuff that they're going to ask for. You can go in our system, pull up the Documents tab, and here everything is. 6H documents, hazardous chemical listing, pull that up. There it is. Here's the hazardous chemical listing. You need to see monthly hazardous waste checklist. Again, that's simple. Pull it up. What month do you want to see? There it is. Hazardous waste container checklist. But it's right here. Everything's in the documents section for shop compliance. And again, on the left side, employee files, employee compliance. So you go to Jackie. All right, there's their job hazard analysis. There's a respirator fit test. There's a questionnaire. And here's all of their training certificates from how long they've been with us. And you can pull that up by simply going here and clicking on it. And then you have their certificate of completion. Really quickly, you can just grab it and it shows you how valid they are. Any questions on the Documents tab?
No, it's a pretty cool system though. I mean, very complete and things right at your fingertip. I know as a owner manager, one of the hardest things to do is keep everything straight and orderly. And this makes this part of it very straight and orderly. Very cool.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. Again, in the Documents tab, If they want to see your written programs, which that's the first thing they're going to ask for, you can come here, click on your written programs, and here's your safety and health plan, hazard communication policies, materials, respirator protection, lockout, tag out, any section that they need to see, it's all right here. And it's specifically designed around our system. So if you have us, this is exactly what you're doing in the shop. So it's already written out and you don't have to do anything. You can just literally download it and give it to the inspector if that's what they're asking for. Safety data sheets in our system. We have a pretty good database, but when we get a new shop or a new shop group or a new dealership when they come on board, one of the first things that we do is an initial hazardous material inventory. So they will either send us the products they buy, we go get all the SDS sheets and upload them into the system, or we'll physically go around and take pictures of everything and upload those from the pictures that we take as well. But again, you can come in here, if you're shooting PPG, we have probably all of the PPG already in here because a lot of our shops do it. 1,300 entries for PPG, but you just pull it up, maybe put the clear code in, whatever it is, hit the button there for the PDF and your data sheet is right there and it's ready to go. And we have people that monitor the revisions on these as well. So it's always the most.
Jackie, dumb question. Inspector comes to your shop, wants to check your P page or your SDS sheets.
Yep.
First thing that he wants to look up isn't in there or is out of date. How big of an issue is that? Or if you're actively trying, are they going to be pretty decent with you, or are they going to slap your hand and nope, this isn't in here, $5,000?
No, they'll be lenient with you as long as they see that you have and you're trying. Like you had all this going on and then you just didn't have one SDS sheet, then they're going to be like, okay, well let's make sure we get that one, but you had the other 4. They're going to be a little bit more lenient than if they walk in and you don't have any program, you have no proof of training, you have no certifications on any of your employees. I mean, and you don't have a binder and you have no access to any way to get an SDS sheet. That's going to be a problem, because they're going to say they're not even trying.
Because I mean, let's face it, for a smaller shop, this is a lot of work.
Yes.
I mean, it's a lot of work for a big shop, but I mean, I couldn't imagine being, a mom and pop shop having to deal with this that has to do the exact same thing that I have to do at a dealership, that I have a lot more people to help do this.
Sure. Well, we designed the system in a way that when we hope that our tasks, the way we've set them up, I know this looks like a lot in the beginning, but really once you get through it, the monthly maintenance is very minimal. It's monthly safety topics, that you can go through and simply click on a monthly safety topic. We actually make it where the roster, you can click on it, it will auto-populate the names of the people in the organization. It'll put them over there, and then you just go over the training topic. This one happens to be on first aid. It's 1 page. You read it during one of your production meetings. You have your employee sign, and then you put that signed roster back into the system and you're done. It's a 5-minute safety meeting, but that counts for OSHA's rule of continuing education. So that's how we handle that. All right, any other questions?
No, everybody's pretty quiet tonight.
Okay. Last tab is the reports tab. So if you needed to run a summary report of everything that's ever been done at your shop for however long you've been with us, you can go in here and put a date range, but you can see it actually shows you auto lift periodic inspections when they were all completed. You have one open right now. You get down to hazardous chemical listings, everything that's ever been done since they started with us in 2013. And it just goes all the way back through everything, even breaks down your employees that you've had. So if you needed to go through and pull everyone's annual EPA testing certificates, you just go to the reports tab, scroll down to the EPA section right here, print all their certificates and hand them to the inspector or whoever needs it. But it breaks down every section, all their certificates. It's all right here in one spot, which you can just grab it. And then on the left side over here as well, as you know, you have to, for the OSHA 300, you have to report and keep track of any injuries in the workplace so that you can post that on the OSHA 300. Some people have HR management in their systems that they can do this automated. Some people try to do it just by keeping up with paper. What's the consensus here? How are y'all tracking injuries in the workplace right now?
Doesn't seem a whole lot of anything. I know we do, we have the big board out so everybody can see when the last one was.
Sure.
They'd
Sure.
probably talk more if you had more Raiders in there instead of Cowboys. I'm just going to throw that out.
Sorry about that. I live in Dallas. Born and raised, but yes, our injury reporting, it's simple. It's easy to use. You just go here, you add the injury record, and just basically drop in where did it happen, which body shop did it happen at. Well, it happened at Jackie's Body Shop. Okay, what was the employee? You just click on the employee, social security number, date of birth, what type of category, back injury, injury date, who was the manager at the facility at the time, is this an insurance claim? You hit save, and it will put it on here. And then at the first of next year, when you have to put up that OSHA 300, you just simply print the OSHA 300 for Jackie's Body Shop, and then it'll actually fill it out for you automatically with the name of the employee, what happened, how many days away from work, and so on. So it's just all automated once you put that information in there. It's really easy. All right. Well, that is our system in a nutshell. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer anything at this time. It doesn't have to be about our system. It can just be general questions about what you're doing at your shop or anything. I'm here to help.
Perfect. Well, everybody get your questions in while we wait. I want to thank Jackie because I thought that was a great presentation. I know OSHA scares the crap out of a lot of us, as it should, but no, that was a great presentation. And before I forget, I want to remind everybody about our annual training event, September 24th and 25th in Lincoln, Nebraska. We're going to have Jake Rodenrath, Frank Turlop, Jason Barthanen, Dirk Fuchs. Yeah, Dirk Fuchs, that's a great name. And Dave Robinette. So it is going to be very EV heavy, very calibration and scanning heavy. So it should be a great day. We'll have door prizes this year. It should be a huge event since we haven't been able to be together for 2 years. So, and as always, please try to support our sponsors. Jackie is a great sponsor of the association. So, help those that are trying to help you. So I am not seeing any questions come across, Jackie.
Okay, perfect. Well, I'm going to send this and she'll get the information out to you as well. But for members of the associations, the same thing that we do in Texas and the other associations we're a part of, our normal pricing for our full-blown program with everything is $169 a month. But for association members, we're doing it for $109 a month.
Oh, wow. That is awesome. That is really awesome. So thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if anybody has questions, you can email myself, Regina, and we can get them to Jackie. We want to thank everybody for joining tonight, and hopefully we see you guys September 24th and 25th at our event in Lincoln. And this will be our last presentation until probably early December. We're going to try and get through the football season, and let's enjoy some football and some beer. So everybody, thank you. And hope you have a good night. And Jackie, thank you for your evening.
Welcome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.